right, we have a question from the audience.
We heard a lot this morning about aging population, and we hear talk about lifelong learning. Mr. King mentioned something to the effect of people aged 45 to 64 are less likely to obtain a degree. And yet, if we really look at intellectual capital and getting an edge on it, the state and the companies that figure out how to do something with their workers who are over age 45 to keep them productively engaged in the workforce are the ones who are going to really win. So I guess my question is, would the Chamber consider including under the innovation factor something that would read like a specific state strategy for effective lifelong learning and lifelong career counseling? Because I think it's not just the learning part, it's understanding how they fit into new careers, new job strategies, new business goals. So could you talk to me about why a degree? I'm not sure that a degree is the right measure for someone all their life. I know dentists have come to me for career counseling and said, I'm sick of looking in people's mouths, but that's what I'm trained to do. What else can I do? And yet I tell you, this guy would have many, many skills for any of our businesses. He knows how to work with people. He knows how to problem solve. He can look at things and figure out how to get them fixed. And yet our whole hiring strategy, our whole education system is built towards these degrees. He doesn't need a new degree. He needs an employer who can see his other skills and integrate him somehow in the workforce. So can you address for me about maybe there's some other measures we need to be looking at as we look at lifelong learning?
Well, first, my comment about older folks, it was unlikely that somebody in their 50s or 60s was going to try and get some additional degree. I didn't mean that to be universal or exclusive. It was just really a comment on kind of the aspirations in House Bill 1 and the likelihood that in achieving that attainment level at the national average, that we were going to focus on our younger adults coming through. But your point about lifelong learning is very apt. And the notion that the way we measure learning is in something we have historically called a degree, I would agree with you, I think is becoming less important, certainly for older adults. I share with you just a quick story. I attended this luncheon years ago where a friend of mine was being honored, and they had asked me to make some remarks. And following my remarks, a woman by the name of Joyce Brothers, who, if you're close to my age, you know that Joyce was a very popular television personality. I think she was a psychologist. And she got up and she made this speech, and she said, over the next 30 or 40 years, people are going to live to be 150 to 200 years old. And I sat there and I listened to her and I said, who's putting this old bird out there to say these crazy things? And as luck would have it, I had to... I didn't say that to her, I said it to myself. But as luck would have it, I took a taxi with her back to the airport, and by the time I got there, I was persuaded she was not crazy. About 3-4 months later, we're hosting a dinner at the university. This was in New York, and I've got all these research faculty with me. And I said to them, I said, you know, I heard Joyce Brothers make this speech, and here's what she said. What do you guys think? And this one fellow who was a life sciences guy, a brilliant man, he said, oh, no way. He said, but 120, 130, probably within the next 30 years as a lifespan. Now, if you hang around universities long enough, particularly research universities, and you see the work that's going on in genomics and in disease eradication, in building new body parts, whether it's new knees or new hips or new hearts or new lungs or whatever, it's all going on. And so that number starts to become realistic. And So I started thinking about it not so much in terms of the technology, but in terms of the social impacts. Are we going to retire? If we're going to live to be 110 or 120, are we going to retire when we're 62 and play golf for 50 years? I don't think society can afford that. And frankly, I love golf, but I'd be bored. I think the notion that people are going to work longer, and as technology continues to change as quickly as it does, means that it is more likely that people are going to need to be trained and retrained multiple times during their working lives for multiple careers. A degree may not be the measure of what qualifies you to do something. It may continue to be, but as more educational resources are now available for free on the internet, the finest faculty at MIT and Harvard and Princeton and Stanford, you want to hear their lecture? You don't need a degree, but you want to learn. You can find that stuff. There's a wonderful book called, remember Friedman's book, The Earth is Flat? There's another one called The Earth is Free. It's by a guy by the name of Curtis Bonk, B-O-N-K. He's a professor at Indiana, and it's an encyclopedia of all of these free learning resources that are available over the internet. And so I think as people become more expert at how to use this remarkable tool and access those kinds of materials, people will continue to learn. Whether or not they want a degree will still probably be dependent on whether you want to pay for it, which will be connecting yourself to an institution of higher education that awards a degree. But even those courses, if you want a certificate that says you took the course, you can pay MIT, I don't know, like $100 or something, and they'll give you a certificate. So there'll be a whole array of new technology, new ways of considering education. But I think you're totally right that encouraging lifelong learning is going to be a necessity because as we live longer and work longer, we're going to need to do that to be able to be employable.
And I think the question speaks to the very essence of an education because in this world, it's changing so fast, you have to be a lifelong learner. And I think that would be the greatest lesson that a traditional student learns in a traditional college education. Is learning the skill of self-directed learning and lifelong learning and learning based on what you need to know when you need to know it. The degree is probably a very imperfect way of measuring that, but it may be the best way we have right now. But when I talk to you, a full load in college is 15 hours, 15 credit hours. That's 15 hours a week. That's not much. But I try to tell students, you need to be prepared to devote 2 hours of preparation for every 1 hour class. That's 45 hours. That's a good work week. There's lots of time for other things. And if you do that, you will be successful in college and you'll be successful in life. So the overall concept of taking young people and inculcating in them the knowledge and the commitment to be a self-directed lifelong learner, if you can do that, you've been successful.
Well, we are about out of time. Thank you all so much. Let's, again. And the panelists said a couple of things today that were relevant to me. Dean Dorton Allen Ford.
My foot went to sleep.
Are you all right?
He's good.
Okay.
He's good. It's really that ring he's wearing.
Yeah, it's this,
it weighs
it's
him
this
down.
ring right here. That's my little college's national championship basketball.
So, being a lifelong learner is something that is one of our core values at Dean Dorton Allen Ford. So your all's comments on lifelong learning is so relevant. And I'm involved in recruiting for the firm. And we talk about to the students that finishing school and starting work is just the beginning of their lifelong learning, that they've only just begun to begin to know what they're going to have to know during their careers. So that was very relevant. And I think, Dave, we got some good ideas for ways that the Kentucky Chamber can get the business community thinking about what we can do to assist in making some improvements as we go along in the post-secondary education area. So Dominique said we need to do something. Something needs to be done, and something needs to be done now. So I think that is our charge today. And as all of our speakers before us, education and jobs are very relevant in every discussion we've had so far. We're going to continue that this afternoon. I think it's about lunchtime. Is that right, Jim? Mm-hmm. And at this point, again, thank you all very much, and we'll be adjourned for lunch.
All right.